Wisdom Part 3. This is the third and final video of this series about wisdom. It's been real helpful for me, honestly. Honestly, I feel like this was just for me. I'm just kind of sharing with y'all. So I hope it's helpful for y'all as well. But in the first video, we discovered what is wisdom. Wisdom is what to do, when to do it, where to do it, how to do it, and who to do it with. The second video, we discovered why we want wisdom. Why do we want God telling us what to do? In this one, we're going to start in Proverbs 9 verses 10. It says, "Fear the Lord is the beginning of wisdom." Not fear as in scare and timid. No, fear as in respect, fear as in reverence. A respect and reverence of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And once we have respect and reverence for God, then we can jump into James 1 through 5. And it says, "If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, that give it to all men liberally." Liberally as in freely. And upbraided not. Upbraided not means as in not without scolding, without reproach, without rebuking. And it shall be given to him. And that's good news right there. If we just ask God for wisdom, then he'll give it to us liberally. Verse 6 says, "But let him ask in faith, nothing wavering. For he that wavereth is like a wave of the sea, driven with the wind and tossed. For let not that man think he shall receive anything of the Lord. A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways." So how does faith and wisdom, how do those two go together? First, I'll say that faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. So how do they go together? We have to have faith to know if we ask for wisdom, God will give it to us liberally. Why? Because that is what the word says. Secondly, we have to ask for wisdom, then have faith to do it. I can't ask for wisdom and be like, let me just hear what he's talking about, see if it's better than something I got planned. And if it's better, I'll consider it. It's not going to work like that. He's not going to give it to me like that. Thirdly, I have to understand that God's wisdom and this earthly wisdom aren't the same. The Bible calls the earthly wisdom, it says it's foolish. It said the wisdom from God is first pure as in perfect, and then it's peaceable. They are completely different. We've been trained to think on this earth system, and it calls it foolish. So when we get wisdom from God, it requires faith. Why? Because the wisdom from God doesn't make earthly sense, so it's going to require faith. And I'll explain that better in this story. First, Chronicles 14. David just became king, and the Philistines heard about him. Basically, they were going to come and try to kill him. And then when David heard about it, David inquired of God, saying, "Shall I go up against the Philistines? Will you deliver them in my hand?" And the Lord said to him, "Go up, for I will deliver them in your hands." And the Lord delivered them in his hands. And the second group of Philistines came again, trying to destroy David again. And David therefore inquired of God again. And God said to him, you should not go up after them. Circle around them. Come up on them in front of the mulberry trees. And it shall be, when you hear a sound of marching or going in the tops of the mulberry trees, then you shall go for battle. For God has gone out before you to strike the camp of the Philistines. Going and marching on the top of the mulberry trees. What does that even sound like? I'm sure when David tried to explain it to his men, they're like, what does that sound like? I don't think even David knew what it sounded like. He just knew, I gotta have faith, and when I hear it, I'll know I hear it. I'll know what I don't know what it sounds like, but when I hear it, I'll know what it sounds like. And he had to have faith in order to do whatever God gave him wisdom to do. And what we also see there is David asked God in each situation, God, what should I do here? God, what should I do here? And that's how we have to be. Because if David would have got maybe prideful and said, man, I defeated him last time, I know how to do it this time, or even forgetful, and he tried to do the same thing the next time, when God gave him a whole different approach in order to be able to conquer the Philistines, potentially could have led to the demise of him, possibly, or to some of his men. We don't know. Thank God that David asked for wisdom. We have to ask for wisdom in all situations, because God does different things at different times. So if we look at the pattern in the Bible, he does things differently. What does the book of Isaiah say? He's doing new things. God not going to do it this way every single time. Why? Because we be dependent on a pattern and a schedule if he does it the same way every single time. We have to be dependent on God, so he has to switch it up. Also, it wouldn't require faith if he does the same thing each and every time. So in order to be dependent on him, he does switch things up. But because David asks God, what do you want me to do in this situation? God, what do you want me to do in this situation? Which we can determine that is wisdom. Then it said, the Lord brought the fear of him upon all nations. Why? Because he just asked God, God, what do you want me to do? It had nothing to do with David. David acknowledged that too, but it had nothing to do with David. It had all to do with God giving him the wisdom in order to be able to defeat these Philistines. Not only give him the wisdom to do it, but then be able to give him the ability to do whatever he gave him the wisdom to do. We have a good God. If we just get to a point where we're just asking God, God, what do you want me to do here? God, what do you want me to do there? God, what do you want me to do in this situation? God will do exceedingly, abundantly, above all things we could ever ask for if we just ask for wisdom. This is the third and final part of this series. I hope it's been helpful for you. Like I said earlier, this is really for me, and I'm just kind of sharing with y'all. I hope it was helpful for y'all as well.